All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for coming today and coming to hear from our panelists that we have. I will have them introduce themselves shortly, but my name is Mallory Watson. I'm the Marketing and Outreach Manager with Conductor. We offer no-cost resources to small business owners, entrepreneurs, and business leaders in Central Arkansas. And we do this through workshops, one-on-one consulting. We do this through our 10X Growth Accelerator and different outreach events like this. And so whether you're here for bonus points or you're here because you were intrigued by the topic, we're glad that you're here and hope you learned something today, get something out of our presentation. Before we get started, if you'd like to learn more about Conductor, you can go to arconductor.org. We have a new website, so we're very excited about that. And you can opt into our newsletter. You can follow some socials, and that's the easiest, quickest way to see everything that we have going on at no cost. And we are located downtown Conway at the Arnold Innovation Center, which is a very low-cost place that small business owners can co-work. So if you're a small business owner or you have a side hustle that you may not necessarily call it a small business yet, and you need a space to work that is not your house or a random place or your room, or you don't want a lot of expensive options out there, we have a really great community there, and we're really proud of that. So you can go to our website to learn more. Healthcare Innovation Sprint will be this May 13th through 16th. This is an event that we put on for college juniors through graduate students. And this is for any student. I mean, you can be of any major, but it's a focus on entrepreneurship and innovation in healthcare. So I'm going to play a video for you that will hopefully paint a better picture of what HIS is, and you can get a better grasp on that. And if you guys have any questions after, we're happy to answer those. But this will take you to the application and sort of walk you through what that process looks like. But there is potential to win cash prize at the end of the demo day if your team wins in that cash prize. So, but it's a really great event that allows for students to connect with different students across the state. We hope to have some students from all over the state that attend and participate, but we, of course, would love to see some UTA Bears participate in that. So we encourage you guys to apply and check out that program. We're really excited about it. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our panel. So to start, this is funds and foundations for small business owners. With a financial focus, of course, about access to capital, where that comes from. So first, I want our panelists to introduce themselves, what institution you're with, and give explain the type of financial option that you're going to be discussing today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica. I'm also with Conductor. I serve as the Director of Operations there and also get to oversee our Kiva lending program. So Kiva is a micro-lending opportunity, a crowdfunding micro-lending opportunity. And I'm sure I'll get to go more in depth about that, but it is borrowers can request up to $15,000 at zero interest. But since it is crowdfunded, it means that you have to campaign to raise those funds. So it's a similar concept as GoFundMe, if any of you have heard of that, but it's not a donation. It is a loan, so you would be required to pay it back. Conductor serves as a trustee of Kiva, so that means that I get to help you with the application. We get to say, hey, yes, this person is a real person, it's a real business. We endorse them to get this loan, and then we share with our network that you're fundraising, crowdsourcing your loan, that way to get you to your goal of borrowing the funds. Now you can request again up to $15,000. Conductor doesn't actually play a role in whether you are approved or how much they will actually lend you. But like I said, we do assist every step of the way for this type of lending.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melanie Moore. I'm a community banker at Simmons Bank here in Conway. I would say I'm more on the traditional financing side. If it's something that I can't help with, I refer to other colleagues up here. So specifically SBA lending. SBA lending is geared towards your newly formed businesses, startup businesses, or the business where you're kind of on the cusp of you have those growing pains, but you don't necessarily have the capital yet in order to put that back into the business in order to make it more efficient, in order to make more money. So with SBA loans, anything that is 50,000 or less, I tend to refer to people like Forge or Communities U. They're known as the micro lenders for SBA. Anything over 50,000 SBA, really the main difference with SBA and traditional financing, which is what I do day to day, is that SBA financing has to be purposeful. So for example, on the commercial side, if you get a working capital line of credit, and working capital means anything from bridging the gap for payroll, paying your taxes at the end of each year, just general operating expenses, but there's no specifics on what you use that money for. Whereas on the SBA side, if you were to get a working capital line of credit, you have to let your SBA officer know specifically what you're going to use those funds for. And they can be used for, if you're looking to bring on a new team member, you just need to float for a little bit in order to pay their salary, benefits, and all the costs it takes with onboarding someone. So that's about what I do with SBA. I work, most banks in town are SBA certified. So your bank or of course Simmons Bank, we have SBA lenders. And it's looked at a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, my job is to talk to you, get an idea of what your goals are. And then if it's not something I can help with, the connections that we make with places like the Conductor and the AIC, we have a whole network that we can refer to get you kind of where you need to go.
Awesome. So, yes, Jay Young, and I actually am representing Forge Community Loan Fund as a regional director for Central Arkansas. Been with the organization for about 5 years now. And what we focus on, like Melody was saying, is primarily anything that's under $50,000. We can do loans that go up to like a couple $100,000, but the issue with that is we have to start structuring and pulling, funds from different places. We're known as a micro lender. We've been around since 1988. The main thing I would say is some of the loans that they're not able to approve, they would send our way, and we develop a handshake relationship with the various banks from around town. So if they bring us someone, we're able to do a micro loan. When they get to the point where they need more funds than what we are able to lend, we walk them right back over to where they came from. So it's like a handshake relationship that we have. I am excited though because we a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, Kiva has a different way that they operate. I want to say that there's only 2 of you all in the state now. Is it 3?
So there's 2 hubs. We just serve as a trustee, so we're not a hub. So typically we tend to help people in Central Arkansas and then some of the surrounding counties. But if it's somebody from Little Rock, I send them over to Itzel. If it's Northwest Arkansas, I'll send them over to
that's why I asked that.
Kiva. Yeah.
Because Forge is kind of overseeing the Kiva operations that's in Little Rock. And so a lot of times when there's something that say they need more than 15,000, like she said, Excel will go ahead and send them over to us, and we'll have a conversation with them. So Forge is what we call a relender, certified relender. We borrow funds from USDA, we borrow funds from SBA, and so the same rules that a lot of times Melanie and all have to follow, we have to follow the same rules. So that's just a general explanation as to who Forge is.
Awesome. So Gary, I want to say on you, how is your funding different? You spoke on this a little bit, but how is your funding different than other funding opportunities? What are the big differences? Yeah, the big difference for us is if you go to a traditional bank, oftentimes, and I think Melanie will suffice, she'll actually agree with me on this. If you haven't been in business for a couple of years, there's a good chance you're going to be denied right away. Whereas with us, you can come to us with an idea on a piece of paper. If it sounds good to us, and you can show us where the numbers work, we think we agree on the numbers working, we could possibly do a loan for you. As well, we're not going to say, you kind of have to have the perfect credit score. We look beyond the credit score. Okay. We look at credit score and credit history. So what I mean by that is, you could say like if you had 20 years of terrible credit history, but you had someone to work on your credit score and got it up over the last year. Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to look at both of those. So even though your credit score is great, we still may not help. On the other hand, you can have a great credit history, but a bad credit score, and we're going to look beyond the credit score and perhaps provide a loan. Okay, that's helpful. Melanie, what is SBA lending and who can apply for this?
Anybody can apply for an SBA loan. Again, I kind of touched on it a little bit. It is purposeful financing, and it is specifically for those that have an idea that are, maybe have been doing a certain craft for a while, but for somebody else, and they're ready to go out on their own. So it really is, it's a small business administration. They are there to help those that are looking to either, whether you're established already and you're just looking to grow, but like I said, you're not quite there yet for traditional financing, or if you just have an idea and you want to speak with somebody about, what does it look like to get funding? This is what I need, that type of thing. So typically with SBA loans, the interest rate is higher, not much, but just typically across the board. Rates are high everywhere right now. Hopefully that changes in the next 18 months, but the terms are different for an SBA loan. Yes.
What is your average that you're seeing on the interest rate percentage?
So it depends on what type of lending. So with anything real estate, it's going to be based off that Wall Street Journal prime rate, which is 8.5 right now. Anything equipment loan is based off, and this is specific to Simmons Bank, maybe a little different, but I think it's pretty similar. Anything like equipment is going to be based off the 10-year treasury rate. So some of those still have a 7 in front of them, which right now is, that's like having a 3% loan if there's a 7 in front of it. But with SBA, as far as a traditional working capital line of credit, as I mentioned, we do an annual maturity. So we renew it every single year. And the reason for that is for us to be able to monitor. So we know that the customer is using that line of credit as they should. Very similar to a credit card. You want to, if you use it, try to pay it off each month. That's these times, everything's expensive. That's not always the case right now, but that's more on the conventional side. With SBA, you can get up to a 5-year, 10-year term on a working capital line of credit, because each time you need funds from that, you are working with your SBA officer and letting them know what the purpose of it is. So it's draw by draw rather than general traditional is you kind of have the freedom to use it how you need to.
So with that line of credit, is it essentially like if you don't use it, you're not paying interest on it?
Correct.
It is something you want to be responsible with.
Right.
And the reason being is, within the environment that we're in today, you don't want to max out your line of credit, and then the bank says, we're calling it. Now you have a loan payment.
Right.
You have a choice. So,
Good questions. What is the best way for entrepreneurs to learn about and access your resources? And whoever can start.
Yeah. So I think it's coming to events like this, getting to know what the options are, and not being afraid to ask the questions. I think that we're trying to bridge that gap with entrepreneur support organizations, which is what Conductor does. It's like business owners don't know what they don't know, which is okay. So we just want the opportunity to get to share those resources, that there's no strings attached, that there's no cost. So being able to just, if you come to us and you don't know what type of lending you might need, allow us to refer you to Jay, to Melanie, to, make that introduction so that you can have some of that information. You can access our resources online. You can come to the AIC downtown. You can, your professors or your network that might be connected to us already, we're happy to make that connection or ask them to make the connection. And even if Conductor specifically doesn't have all the answers for you, we will do our very best to connect you to somebody that will guide you through the process and make it easier. I don't know about you guys, but I think sometimes Google is overwhelming with the amount of information. Like if you want to know, like what kind of, lending do I need? You can go down a rabbit hole of all kinds of types of lending and information. So what we want to do is be able to help you get your answers much quicker and accurately by connecting you to a real person that can answer those questions that are specific to your scenario. So a roundabout way to say, don't be afraid to use your resources, whether it's Conductor or your banking institutions or your connections. That's what we get paid to do. So.
I would kind of piggyback on that and say, yes, for sure, the various events. I know for us, up until a year ago, I had Central Arkansas, East Arkansas, the whole Delta, as well as minority business development reforms. I don't have all of that anymore. I just have Central. I do still have minority business development, but I said that to say that I have a lot of windshield time over the last 5 years. I've been all over the state. I grew up in Hope. I lived out of in Texas for 25 years. I had never seen as much of Arkansas as I've seen in the last 5 years. So we definitely put the miles on to get around and let people see us up close and personal, to know that we're okay. You can touch us.
Yeah, the
you can ask us
trust.
questions. Yeah, that's what it's about.
And I'll add to that too, I always recommend it can be intimidating to go into a bank and talk about that. We know it's intimidating. So with the conductor, I mean, I think the conductor and the AIC is the best thing since sliced bread because of that. Because if you start with the conductor, then like she said, talking with you first, they're gonna help with, the basics, like getting your account set up, how that you need to run your payroll. So the very basic startup things, but then additionally, based off what you're looking for, it really is a referral network. I mean, I've had referrals from Erica and Grace Rains, and then I've also referred people, just as connections that have wanted to get involved with the community. So it really does go both ways.
Don't be afraid to ask. Can you all debunk any misconceptions or assumptions about your institutions that may ease the worries of entrepreneurs or encourage them to come to you for assistance? I know that finances are very scary. We hear that all the time from entrepreneurs that we work with. So is there anything that you feel like you hear, business owners say to you and you go, oh, no, that's not true, that you would like to share?
Yeah, I have to say this. This is a lot of times, oftentimes, this is the elephant in the room. We're a nonprofit organization, yes, but we don't have a briefcase full of grants.
Right.
We can't get you free money.
I have to say it because everywhere I go, people say, well, can we get a grant? And I'm like, you're talking about opening up a business. Understand that there are businesses that have been around for years, 20, 30 years, and they're just getting to the point where philanthropists are starting to say, hey, here's a check. Do something with this, do something with that. So you can't, I let them down.
Yeah.
But, I said, no, it's not like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'll say a misconception is that, banks don't like other banks. I always thought that before I was in banking, but I'll just be very honest with you. One of my colleagues that is a longtime banker, I work at Simmons, Banco ZK is across the street. I mean, if I can't help somebody, I'm calling the conductor. I'm calling Banco ZK. I'm calling my friend at Arvest. And so, the longer that you're in it, people really do move around a lot in banking. That's just kind of how it is. But you develop those relationships because at the end of the day, like my goal is to take care of my customer, whether they're existing or a new customer. And if it's not something that I can physically do myself, I want to get in with somebody who can, so they're not just left high and dry. So I think that's a big misconception is that, you get a bunch of bankers in a room, like most of us are friends because we, every bank pretty much does the same thing, but some of them have specific little, areas that they're better at than others. So I think that's something that's not true anymore. So
I think for us, it's the no cost resources. Sometimes I get like, what's the catch? Or like, when are you going to charge me? Or, is it actually value adding because we're not having to pay out of it, out of pocket for it? The truth is that somebody is paying for it. We're third party funded through contracts, through grants. So there is, value behind it. There is somebody paying for it. It's just not our clients. And specific to Kiva, I think one thing that may just be kind of like a turn off or maybe like a point that people are like, I don't know if I want to do that, is that you do have to go and create a public campaign. So let's say that you decide that you want to go with Kiva, you get approved. That means that you have to advocate for yourself for this campaign. So along with the benefits of getting 0% interest, and that they're not running traditional like credit checks or they're not running your social security number. They're not asking you for financials. The investment that you have to make is that you get to say, hey, this is my business and this is what I'm raising funds for this loan because I'm growing or I'm, needing to hire somebody. So I think that sometimes can be kind of like, oh, I don't know that I want to do that. I don't want people to know that I need to borrow money. But the way that we approach that is like, that's a great marketing campaign. You know, we have a business in town. I don't know, the Cat Cafe was a Kiva client. I'm able to share that because their campaign's public. But, you know, they were opening a business and they were able to say she did an incredible job of saying, hey, I have like $500 left to reach my goal and we're going to open in a week. And my brother is a cat lover, but he was on that page all the time checking the updates and was like, guys, like sending it to his friends. So I think that's kind of the main thing behind that is like, well, I don't really want people to know. But if you look at it in perspective of like, I'm getting to share with the community, getting to share with the conductor networks, getting to share with your own networks and doing the work, being transparent that it's a loan, not a donation. So, sorry, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask on that, so say for instance, hypothetically, you are promoting that campaign, but then you're not getting money back into it. Are you able to just pay from your funds that you're doing, or does it have to be paid from donated funds?
I'm sorry, one more time. If you're campaigning and people aren't contributing to your campaign,
Yeah, then,
like could you fund your own campaign?
right, like, I mean, like, you're responsible to pay that loan back regardless, right? So if you're not getting any funds from the community, then you
Gotcha.
use your own, like, business.
Yeah,
name.
That's a great question. So to clarify, you actually have to crowdfund the funds first before you ever get the loan.
Oh,
So you'll have 45 days to crowdfund, and that's why it's so important to like have a trustee.
uh-huh.
And there's some, depending on the area that you're in, there's some hubs that have a match. We don't have a match anymore, but what that usually means is like if, you know, I don't know if Little Rock has one, but they would match 1-to-1. So let's say that you are crowdfunding $1,000. For every like amount that somebody lends you, that partner organization would lend the same amount. So then really you're only crowdfunding half of it. But you do have to fund your whole loan before you get the funds. Yes, yes. Which,
No, I was just gonna say, I like the reason why I like the Kiva model is in my line of business, I'm a business owner as well. Being vocal is a big part of helping you remain accountable
Yeah.
to not just who you're working with, but to the your ecosystem you're working within, the community. So if you're saying, I'm gonna do this, now everybody's looking at you to see if you do that. So that's a big piece of it.
And I feel like with Kiva too, we see all these small business owners that, you know, patty cakes, that have things happen to their business out of your control. And they say, well, I don't want, you know, and Patty didn't say this, but we hear a lot of business owners say, well, I don't want donations. I don't want to put up a GoFundMe and just have the community give me money. That I'm not comfortable with that. So I feel like Kiva is a great way to get the community involved, but the community is getting that money back in return. And there's just that, great, I can make payroll, I can fix this problem in my business I didn't foresee, but it's not donated necessarily. People are getting that back. So
and to differentiate a little bit on that from other lending traditional models, like Kiva process a very simple application. They're not going to ask you for, you know, your social or like any kind of financials. They are going to ask you for your business to be legitimate. So of course, they're going to want, you know, if you have an LLC or the type of business entity, to make sure that it's registered. They're going to want to see that you have a bank account in that name. And they accept all kinds of businesses. There are some restrictions to that, like multi-level marketing or anything that's like, you know, marijuana or there's a list of several things. But it can be a brand new business. It can be a business that's already been established for a few years, but they just need a little bit of capital to get to that next level. A story that I've heard before is, you know, like it was a small sewing business and this person just needed an extra sewing machine, but they didn't have the $1,000 to get that. They were able to, you know, get a Kiva loan, buy what they needed, and then pay it back slowly at 0% interest. So it's very not traditional, but you do have to put the work, you know, behind it to get that going and get the funds.
One more question. on that, Sorry.
You can ask as many questions.
Can you elaborate, what do you mean by the community is then getting that money? So the money that they donated, what do you mean they didn't get back?
Yeah, the money that they've lent you. So
Yeah.
let's say that you get a loan, you get approved to crowdfund your loan. You would start sharing with your networks, whether that's on social media. We would start Conductor, if we endorse you, we would start sharing with our networks. So via email and our newsletters, on our social media. So people have access to your link. They're like, hey, I want to support you because you have a business I'm interested in, or just simply because you're a member of our community. So they would lend you the money. When you accept the loan, you reach the amount of the loan that you're fundraising or crowdfunding, you take the loan and then you start repayment. We all get paid back. Anybody that
Oh, anybody that
contributed,
donated,
yes.
they get. paid
Anybody
back
that
from
lent
the
you
Kiva.
money, yes, gets paid
That
back.
is so neat. And it's
Okay.
interesting because it comes back in, I mean, you may have like a notification for like $1.18 because that's your split of what was, the payment they just made. So that's sort of how it comes back, to sort of paint a picture of that. But it's really interesting.
Yeah, so whoever lets you borrow money will start getting paid back. And a lot of the times, the thing about Kiva, it's like, well, what's in it for Kiva as far as 0% interest? For us as a trustee, my understanding is that it's just the impact that, small increments has a big impact. Maybe I can't let you borrow $15,000, but as a community, we can help you reach that goal. And then they have ways that they're able to make money off of, to support Kiva, the organization itself. That's through partnerships. That's through the one-on-one partnerships that they have. But it's really cool to see, like, if you get a loan, you're able to see, like, who in the community has let you borrow money. It's not a donation, so I'll just let you money. And sometimes it's a group of people, and then they're able to track, your repayment. And then, like, I'll get an email and be like, oh, you've got $1 back or whatever. And
So
typically,
their repayments are over the period of the loan.
Mhm.
Last question.
Yes.
So, I really like the Kiva model, and then, we all assume that we will be very successful, but it's not the case always, right? So, in an ideal world, we can be very successful, but if something goes wrong and if we fail, so if we cannot repay the loan by the end of the term, then what happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they're flexible with you. They're gonna lay out a payment plan that it's up to 36 months, depending on the amount that you get. If you get only 1,000, then it's not gonna be 3 years. But they lay it out in a way that's reasonable. And during the application process, they want to know what your plan is. So they're gonna ask, okay, ideally, we want you to pay this money back because your business is so successful that you're generating revenue to pay it back. But if that doesn't work, what is your plan? So you have to answer those questions. Some of the answers that we hear are like, well, I have savings that I will pull from. My spouse or my partner will help pay this loan back. Or I have a full-time job that I can make payments from. But they're very flexible in terms of, like, if you can't make the established amount payment, that you can pay as little as $10 for your amount or for your account not to be delinquent. So this is where our trustees and the partners come in. Like, we want to check in with you. And if I get an email that says, hey, you're late on your payment, like, just know that you can pay $10. That's a flag for me to check in with you and say, hey, what's going on with your business? Is there any, like, resources we can provide for you? Like, let's talk about, what's happening to make those sales, or who can we refer you to? So it's a pretty full cycle. But yes, ideally it is, in a perfect world, it's to where you're making enough money. Sorry, y'all. Enough money to pay for it. Yeah, making humans is hard, y'all.
These are great questions. Speaking of businesses that, you guys have touched on that a little bit, but what are some businesses in the area that you guys have helped? Erica, I know you spoke on one, but can you all elaborate on some businesses that maybe you helped before in the area?
I can give you, there's one here in Conway. It's a masonry company, so they do brick, brick buildings and things. We've done a couple for them. They've been clients of Forge for 10 years or so. We have a couple of food trucks that are in the area. So Forge is one of two micro lenders that are headquartered in the state. Communities Unlimited is the other one. Communities Unlimited primarily focuses on municipalities like water towers, things like that. Forge, we do just about everything else.
Right.
We'll do, rolling stock, 18-wheelers, food trucks, we do restaurants, you
Yeah.
name it for the most part. As Erica said, there are certain things we can't get involved in. We talk about relationship with SBA.
Right.
You don't get into the marijuana, anything that's sexually influencing, we don't do that. Just so many things that we don't get involved in. But for the most part, we can do it along with just like in area.
That's awesome.
I have a couple of that I have referred a couple to Community View and I believe Forge. It's been a while, so I don't have any specifics, but I had a customer that was looking to buy some vending machines and place them at local colleges. I think one was in Little Rock, maybe one was here in Conway.
It's my client.
Okay, so there we go.
Yeah.
So that's just a perfect example of the working relationship. So, it was the traditional financing route, it didn't meet our policy standards. And that's not a negative on the customer individual. It's specific to the bank. They didn't meet our parameters. So at that point, that was when I referred them to Forge and they were able to, and I checked in with her probably a week or so later and just asked. She was very excited. It was an easy process. She was able to get approved. I've seen one of those vending machines now. And so it's just cool to be able to, if I can't help, know that there's resources for people out there that can. I know there's a dental practice here in Conway that it was the situation, like I mentioned earlier, has been working at another dental office, branched out on his own, started his own clinic, and really just needed some capital to get some more equipment. He had some chairs and things like that, but he just wanted to be able to be more efficient. And so I believe he went to Forge or Communities Unlimited. That one's been a while, but they were able to help. It was like $30,000. He just needed to get some more chairs and equipment and things. And now he's brought on, he's the one that brought on a dentist now where he was previously the one that was working under someone. So it's very cool and very fulfilling. Basically, it's why I do what I do, just to see that come full circle and help somebody.
Yeah, I think he was probably one of my favorite programs just because you get to see the actual tangibles. For us, so the Cat Cafe, but we have anything from a marketing business, photography business, coffee shops, food trucks, a funeral home, you name it. So yeah, ultimately, like I said, Kiva makes the decision, but yeah, there's really not a whole lot of restraints on like what kind of business can apply. So,
Go ahead, please.
For Jay and Melanie, at minimum, what do I need to bring with me when I come to meet with you? Documentation, plans, what would you suggest we bring when we come meet?
I'll let you go first, because I know it's a little different.
Yeah, so I like to see some type of a business plan. And when I say some type of a business plan, I've been around business for some years, many years. I remember 40 or 50-page business plans. We don't do those anymore. Okay.
You don't want to read them?
No, because and besides, by the time you get it done, it's going to change anyway, so it's a waste of time. We look for the 3 to 5 page business plan. Even more so now, pushing toward the Lean Canvas. So, are y'all familiar with the Lean Canvas? No, it's a basically a one-pager business plan, if you will. It's a great way to really force you to put your business ideas on one piece of paper, and you're addressing 9 different areas about the business. So we want to see a plan. When someone comes to me, I want to see a plan. I want to hear in their mind that they're clear on where they're going. One of the questions I'm always going to ask is, how are you going to get out of the business? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, how will you exit the business? I want to know how you're planning on exiting the business as you start the business, if that makes sense. So those are the type of things that we like to know. And then if they don't have those things, either we can help them put those together, or we partner with Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center, ASBTDC. If someone comes to us from ASBTDC, I'm excited because I'm already knowing that they're ready.
Yeah, very good.
So,
I'll say the same thing. I refer a lot of people to the ASBT.
TDC.
Yeah, I can never get that right. And I have the link to the website. But it's where they'll help, somebody has an idea, like the example, they've been in the industry, they want to start out on their own, there are some wonderful people that work with helping people get business plans done. So for true SBA, so, we kind of talked about with, Origin Communities Unlimited, it's usually the 50,000 or less. So more traditional SBA is gonna be more similar to your conventional financing. You're gonna need tax returns, whether that's, you have personal tax returns and your business is reported on Schedule C of your tax return, because it's a sole proprietorship or a solely owned LLC, or if you have separate business tax returns. And the structure of your business is completely specific to how you operate. And that's something that, like the conductor, all of us can help with if you're kind of from ground zero and you're not sure which way you want to go. So your entity documents, which are gonna, like she mentioned, say that you're a legitimate business, tax returns, personal financial statement. Personal financial statement can be very intimidating when you first see one, but it is basically a personal balance sheet. You're gonna list your assets, your liabilities, your income, and then you can break down individually. So if you own any additional property or things like that. So, I know I'm forgetting something, insurance, it really is, loan specific, but there's a lot more in-depth documentation needed for SBA and traditional than there would be for Forge.
Yeah, one of the things I did not mention is that even though we're not on the same, I would say, level, we don't do things exactly the same way as a traditional bank. We will see what collateral we could attach to the loan and everything. Sometimes we don't have enough, and that's okay, because we have other ways to kind of work around that. We worked a lot with, let me make sure I get this right, Arkansas Developmental Financial Authority, ADFA. And basically ADFA is a mini guarantor for the state. So what happened is someone, like I just closed a loan yesterday. The young lady had to pay like $120 for her portion of ADFA. Forge pays $120 and ADFA puts in $120. So that's $660, is that right? That $660 basically goes into a pot. If for whatever reason she defaults on the loan, Forge is not out of that whole $8,000 loan. We may not get the whole $8,000 back, but we're going to get some of it back because we help insure. We put a pot of money over here to kind of insure that loan.
All right, I have two questions. What do you mean by your exit plan? Because I did not follow that.
Okay, so you're interested in starting a business. When you get ready to leave the business, do you want to sell it? You want to heir it to your children, to your niece or nephew? How do you want to get out of it?
Gotcha. And then
Close it.
Yeah, you want
Yeah,
to close it?
and-
Because if you have a sole proprietor, understand this, if you have a sole proprietorship, it's not LLC, it's not incorporated. When you pass, the business passes too.
Right.
It's done.
Mhm.
So those are the reasons why we want to know those things, because we want to make sure you're properly structured for what your end goal is.
Do you need an exit plan on like an LLC? Or an S corporation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you should have an exit plan on whatever, however you're structured, you should know how you're going to get out of the business.
And then the second part is, what if you haven't done taxes on your business yet? Like
That's
it's
okay.
still due.
You will have, if you're starting out and say you've only been in operation for 6 months, we want to see the financials for that 6 months. Even starting out, just basic Excel spreadsheet, this is your income, these are your expenses, this is your bottom line. We can go from there. We can help you with QuickBooks. We can help you with, there's a million different systems out there that I probably don't know about. But just making sure that you're keeping some type of record. Because once you get, as your business grows, you're going to get to a point where you're outgrowing your systems and your processes that you have, which is where, people like us come in. But up until you get to where you are filing tax returns, whether it's on your Schedule C or separate, just making sure you keep a record, because you're going to have to give that to your CPA in order to file those tax returns.
Can you help start an operations separate than the formation of your LLC or business? So can you identify like the start of your operations on a different day? It doesn't have to start right as you started your business.
Correct.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the same day.
So something we do is, like Erica mentioned, making sure you have a legitimate business. Especially for traditional financing, we will pull a certificate of good standing, and that's with the Secretary of State. And basically, what that's saying is the business is in good standing. You paid your franchise taxes for the year, so that is going to be checked. If you do own a business, don't let those lapse. But you can establish your LLC or your sole proprietorship in March, and you may not actually be operating until next year or 2 years from now.
Correct. I
I
do-
got you.
So I'm glad you said that because I joke around a lot since I grew up in Hope, and it's a rural area, right? So I let people know, I said, I can go to my hometown and I can get someone to iron my shirts for me. I can get some of the best meals out of someone's trunk, you name it. And they're not even established business.
Right.
So if we could get to them and say, hey, why don't you at least, set yourself up as a sole proprietor? Okay, that's a start. Okay, why don't you look at going the LLC, So yes, it could happen in stages.
Before we open up the floor for a couple of questions that we have time for, I want you guys to rapid fire just share where everyone can find you, whether that's website, email, anything like that, before we take a couple of questions. So Jay, you can start.
Yeah, so you can find me on Forge Fund, FORGEFUND.org, forgefund.org. I actually have some flyers like this and my business cards on the back table back there. So you all are welcome to grab one of those as well. But all my contact information is on that information. Those pieces of, I would say, collateral.
Same thing for me. If you go to simmonsbank.com and search for a lender in Central Arkansas, my contact information is on there. I also have some flyers up here and some business cards. My office is at the Salem location here in Conway. We have 2 locations here, Salem and Oak Street. I bounce back and forth between the 2, but predominantly at Salem. So feel free to take cell phone's the easiest way to get in touch with us. Like you mentioned, there's some days we're in the office and some days we're all over the place. So
You can find me conductor, arconductor.org. I will be MIA for a few months until about July, but the team will be able to help you guys. But if you need me before, I recommend that you reach out pretty soon. But yeah, arconductor.org, and my name is Erica.
Erica has a clock. Y'all have to.
Yeah, I have a clock.
You have so many different
5
days.
weeks, 5
It was
weeks.
her.
5 weeks, I'm hopeful
Before
less,
this
but
day,
you
yes,
know.
you can't contact her anymore. Yeah.
We can move through Kiva like this though, so.
yeah.
We have time for just a couple of questions before we wrap up, so I know we have one right
What are some red flags when an entrepreneur comes to you asking for money?
Good question.
And also, what are some green flags?
I think one of the red flags for me is on the first meeting, someone asked a question like the gentleman that asked the question, say, well, what if you can't repay the loan? That's a red flag.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with you asking the questions. I'm just saying, when someone comes to me and they ask those questions initially, I'm sitting there going, okay, so that's a red flag to me.
It's a good question though.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
Yeah. It's like, am I gonna go to jail? Like, what's gonna happen? Yeah.
I would say, same with conventional and SBA financing. One thing with the SBA and conventional is the requirement for financials and documentation. And this is depending on where you're at in the stage of your business. If a customer comes to me and they're looking for a loan and I ask them for a financial statement and they don't know what that is, then that's a red flag. And it's not necessarily a negative red flag. It's just there needs to be some more education as far as getting the financials in order before we're to that conventional point.
I think for us, what I look at it when I'm meeting with somebody is when they ask, I'll ask them like, how much do you need to borrow? And they'll say, well, how much can I ask for? It's like, well, ideally, I would like to see that you've done some estimates on what you're gonna need. And I'm with you. I'm a worst case scenario kind of gal. So if I'm gonna go borrow money, I wanna know what's gonna happen if things don't go according to plan. But for us, I don't think that's necessarily a red flag just because Kiva's gonna ask you anyway, like, what's your plan if business isn't going accordingly? So that's kind of one red flag for me. A green flag would be somebody that does have an idea of what exactly they're gonna use their funds for. They have a backup plan already. And of course that it's just a legitimate business, that they have their business registered and all that good stuff.
So one thing I would like to say, from the standpoint of Forge, we'll loan as little as $500 and we go all the way up to $50,000. Right now, our rates are 8.25% and we have a 6-year term. The client you spoke of, She actually has 2 loans with us now. She's doing great. She has 2 loans with us now. She started out with like 3,000, I think, and I think she came back and got 5,000. So she's doing great. She has vending machines at different, she may have one on this campus, various universities around.
Support the
Check it
vending
out.
machines.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, I don't think we have time for any more questions because I know sometimes we have class after this, so I don't want to, be late. But if you all have questions and you'd like to stay and ask, please feel free to do so. Round of applause for our panelists. Connector Services, you can visit ericconnector.org and follow us on social media. Thank you guys. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here.